FPL Game Week 4, my first transfer plans and general first thoughts going into the international break. There isn't another deadline for almost 2 weeks, but we're going to take an early look at how my team is lining up. Just like me, I'm sure some of you have issues all over your team. You'll be considering who to buy, who to sell. We're going to discuss lots of that. We're going to have a look at some fixtures, discuss what happened in game weeks 1 to 3, and maybe what we can learn from it. We'll take a look at my team with just one transfer. How am I going to sort it out? Or am I considering playing a chip over the international break? What is up, everyone? FPL Harry here. Before we dive in, 2,000 likes is the aim, and subscribe if you are new to the channel as well. Game week 3 has just finished. It was Aston Villa versus Crystal Palace. I had Rodgers in my starting 11. I had Watkins in my starting 11. And I had Ismaila Sarr of Crystal Palace first on my bench. And it finished 3-0 to Crystal Palace with an Ismaila Sarr goal. And of course, blanks for Morgan Rodgers and blanks for Ollie Watkins. Now, the game week was not complete despair because I did actually end up on a small green arrow. Another 600k place green arrow up to about 3.2 million. So we are moving in the right direction, but it doesn't feel that way. I still feel very frustrated with my team. I still feel like there's a lot of players I'm disappointed in. It's just because a lot of managers around me are also feeling the same way. So if you are watching and feeling disappointed with the way that you've started, disappointed with your players, you are not alone. I think going into game week 3, your top 1 million was 27 points worse off this season as it was compared to last season. So it just goes to show it has been a very difficult start to the new FPL season for a lot of us who are not alone. If you are having a good start, congratulations, because I'm sure you'll be absolutely flying because so many of us are struggling. Now, just before we dive in and talk about my team, I have been playing around with the background that I use on this videos. You probably don't pay much attention to it, but it is something that I sort of seem to notice. So I'm going to put a couple of them up on screen. Of course, the one I currently use so far during pre-season and into the start of the season. And I'm also going to put up a new one, which is slightly darker, slightly navy blue with a bit of a speckled sort of splatter paint effect, star paint effect as well. So let me know if you prefer the original or the dark navy. So the light blue or the dark blue. Let me know which you prefer in the comments. Always happy to hear feedback on the graphics and all that stuff on the channel. But having a look at my team going into game week 4. So I made 2 transfers going into game week 3, and I really wish I hadn't done. The second transfer of upgrading Mark Guiu all the way to Chris Wood with the money that I freed up downgrading Cole Palmer to Ismaila Sarr was not really worth it. I went into my deadline stream thinking I wouldn't do the transfer. I did a bit of future planning live on the stream and decided that in game week 5, it would make me much more flexible to roll a transfer. And that is still probably the case. But with Chris Wood blanking and Ismaila Sarr getting a return, it's then very disappointing that, you know, the Chris Wood transfer made me bench Sarr. Now, I should have played Sarr over Rodgers, which was suggested. I should have played him over Reinders, which was another consideration. And I almost did that at deadline. But unfortunately, we are sat here with just one transfer and 0.7 million in the bank. Generally, if this was, for example, game week 1, I don't think my team looks too bad on paper. Anderson at home to Leeds, I don't mind. We've got Porro away at West Ham. We've got Sanchez and João Pedro. Williams away at Arsenal is not ideal. We've also got Agbadou and Esteve, all with difficult fixtures. And I am wondering about a defensive transfer to try and fix that. And we'll talk about some potential options in a moment. Into my midfield. Sarr I'm happy with. Salah I'm happy with. Bruno Fernandes scored a penalty, but he still had some attacking threat in that game. The fixtures over the next few weeks are not that great, but he's still good for DEFCON. He's still on some set pieces, although he has lost a few of them. He's taking penalties, and just generally, he is still involved in the Man United team. And generally, I have more important things to do with my transfers at the moment. Bruno Fernandes is going to have a stay of execution, and he actually was one of my highest scoring players this week. So actually quite good that I did end up captaining him, although I did get quite lucky at the end. And if he hadn't have got that last minute penalty, I would be staring at the face of a very big red arrow. Gianni Reinders has actually been quite disappointing apart from game week 1 where he did really well. Again, with Man United at home this week, of course, I'm going to be keeping him. I've got more important things to do with my transfers. And João Pedro up front. One of the good decisions I made at the start of the season was going for João Pedro. It did mean I opted for Morgan Rodgers, who has been really disappointing, but the money that I would have invested in Rodgers to go up to someone like Havertz hasn't really been worthwhile. So João Pedro was a good decision. The bad decision I made going into the start of the season was to pick Ollie Watkins and Morgan Rodgers. Not only have they blanked again, Aston Villa are now the only team in the Premier League that have failed to score a single goal so far this season. Game week 1, 0-0. Game week 2, they lost. Game week 3, they lost even more heavily. They are going to be the big talking point, and I have to offer you a word of caution that it is very realistic that I go into game week 4 with both Ollie Watkins and Morgan Rogers in my lineup again. One free transfer. I am looking at potential replacements for them both, but I'm not ruling out keeping both of them for another week. And I know they will drop in price, but we'll talk about why I might end up keeping them in a moment, despite how disappointing Villa have been, how disappointing both of them have been. In terms of captaincy, almost certain it will be on Mo Salah. I'm not considering the triple captain. Vice captain is on Sarr just based off the fixture, although it will probably end up on João Pedro, another consideration given how he's been pretty good. And he plays a Brentford side who have struggled defensively. It'll be interesting to see, though, if Cole Palmer is going to be back and what's happening with the Chelsea forward, because at time of recording, I've just seen that apparently Chelsea are going to recall Mark Guiu from Sunderland and Jackson might end up being sold. So if you own Mark Guiu and 3 Chelsea and you end up with 4 Chelsea players, if he does get recalled, your next transfer will have to be selling a Chelsea player. So you can have 4 players from a team in your lineup if there is a transfer that takes place, but you have to use your next transfer to reduce that number from 4 down to 3. So that's if you're in that situation. So this is how my team is lining up. It's not the worst on paper, but when you look at some of the performances recently, it doesn't look too great. So we're going to take a look at my ranking of where players are sitting. And I haven't put the Aston Villa assets into priority sell. They are definitely top of my maybe sell because they've blanked and Aston Villa just look completely all over the place. But Tyrone Mings has offered an interview after the end of the game against Crystal Palace where he does say that all this transfer speculation and players being linked has not helped them in the start of the season. Now, that might well be an excuse, and it probably feels like a little bit more of an excuse, but there is part of me wondering about whether they get to the game week 4 and they're a little bit more settled, whether there is something better to come from Aston Villa. There can't be anything worse than we've already seen. It can't get worse than this, can it? It can. Next up, we've got Agbadou and Williams. Nottingham Forest really have disappointed me. They are a team we thought we'd get more clean sheets. Now, they do have Burnley and Sunderland in game weeks 5 and 6, so part of me does want to keep hold of him, but based on what I've seen defensively, just the lack of DEFCON from any of them as well does make me quite inclined to look to sell him. Agbadou is the other one. Wolves are not looking good defensively. He did get DEFCON in game week 2. It's not the end of the world, but if I am looking to strengthen my defense going forward, Agbadou is probably the weakest link when I look at it. In terms of monitors, Chris Wood, I'm probably going to give him game week 5 and game week 6, although I do look at someone like a Mateta. Although he scored the penalty, he actually only came away with a 5-pointer because he picked up a yellow card, and I don't think he got any bonus points unless there was a late change. Reinders, as I spoke about, there are lots of good midfielders, and now suddenly Dewsbury Hall, who I did potentially look to start the season with, looked really good, and Everton looked really strong. I don't think I plan on selling Reinders, but he's one to monitor. And then we've got Bruno Fernandes, so I am going to keep an eye on him. I'm not loving owning Man United players with the way that they're performing and just struggling to get over the line. But in terms of online data, Man United have created some of the most chances in the league. Now, XG, they're quite high up, but they have had 2 penalties. Bruno scoring 1, luckily the week I captained him, and missing the 1 in the week I didn't captain him. But he is one I will keep an eye on. Then the rest are keeps. I mean, Ismail Assar did go off with what looked like cramp. It could have been a hamstring, but he did say in his interview after the game that he'll be fine for the next game. So I'm hoping that he'll be fine. If he is, he's absolutely a keep. I bought him for the long term. He's looked good. And the Crystal Palace fixtures coming up look pretty nice. And the rest of them down there have been forming pretty well. Now, Salah is interesting. I don't think I'm going to look to sell Salah, particularly because it's Burnley and then Everton at home, 2 teams who have conceded an awful lot of chances. And while Saka and Palmer are out, I don't think I need to look to sell him because it's either Salah or Haaland. I don't think there's enough good players to go for a no Salah, no Haaland draft at the moment. So at the moment, Salah is a keep, which leaves, as I said, Rodgers, Watkins, Agbadou and Williams as potential sells. The transfer window is open on Monday, and what happens in that might massively dictate what happens with Rodgers and Watkins in my team, particularly what happens with Alexander Isak and Liverpool. I'm recording at 10 o'clock on Sunday evening, so if there is news on that, I don't have it at the moment. Morgan Rogers, if ISAK doesn't sign and Gakpo looks nailed, I have money to do Rodgers to Gakpo. And that is part of the reason that I went Sarr over Semenyo this week, because I left money in the bank to potentially do Rodgers up to Gakpo. If he isn't going to be an option and we get ISAK to Liverpool, then I will look at some other midfielders, but none of them completely feel amazing. Semenyo had some chances I could look at. Kudus was a little bit disappointing. I could come all the way down to someone like a Dewsbury Hall. I could go to Jack Grealish. A couple of those Everton players are ones I'm looking at. Also similar with Watkins, I will have a look at Ekitike if ISAK doesn't make the move, but if he does, I think Ekitike will start the next couple of games, but he's an issue longer term. I could have a look at someone like a Gyökeres. I could, of course, buy Mateta for the next few fixtures that they do have, but I don't necessarily feel like it's a huge priority, given I do have some cover with Sarr in my midfield as long as he's available. And then Agbadu and Williams, if I wanted to upgrade them to buy a better defender, we'll talk about them. Williams if I needed a bit more money, but Agbadu feels like the bigger issue. So to have a look at some potential players that I would look to buy. So Spurs are interesting, but I already have Porro. And moving into the forward line, as soon as they struggle to score a goal, that's where their assets, who I think are minutes risk, will start to become minutes risk. It sounds like Solanke might be back after the international break. If he's not, Richarlison is worth considering. But if Solanke is back, I still expect that swap to happen. Just like I said in the deadline that I thought Johnson was a bit of a risk, and we saw that with the early sub for him. Kudus, he lacked a little bit of goal threat. Generally, Spurs weren't that great. The upcoming fixtures, though, do look really nice. So, Kudus is still definitely on radar. Leeds, I'm not really going to go there. They look all right defensively. They look like they will create some chances in the upcoming fixtures, but there's not enough for me to really dive into them. Liverpool, it all depends on what happens with the Alexander Isak transfer. I can't really get to any of them defensively unless I was to do a couple of transfers, which I'm not ruling out a -4. I would probably go Van Dijk out of all the defenders. The fullbacks don't really look to be adding anything. Now, if Mark Guéhi of Crystal Palace goes, I don't think he'll go straight into the lineup. If he probably will, then at 4.5 million, he'll be in all of our drafts and he'll be transferred in by pretty much everyone this week. At Bournemouth, I like Semenyo quite a lot. Evan Nilsson is another forward I can consider. The one I'm really looking at most, though, is probably Senesi. He's been fantastic for DEFCON. Howson, who's played the role last year that Senesi is now playing, was one of the best defenders in the entire game for DEFCON. He's good for attacking returns as well, and it's just 4.5 million. So he could also be an Agbadu replacement. But the team I'm really looking at most probably is Crystal Palace when I look defensively. Richards, Guéhi if he stays, probably Lacroix, and also Munoz. All ones on radar. Lacroix looks so good for DEFCON. His attacking threat is not bad. Of course, picking up an attacking return in game week 3. This is probably where I'm looking. A lot of transfers this week, if I go to make them, will probably be revolving around maybe Spurs, Liverpool, Bournemouth, and Crystal Palace. So just going back to my team before we discuss it again, if you've skipped to this part of the video, please let me know again, which of these backgrounds do you prefer? I discussed at the beginning why I've got a couple of them, just playing around with a few things. Do you prefer the darker one, which I'm going to put up on screen now, or do you prefer the original lighter one that we normally use in the videos this season? Any feedback on them, let me know. So let's go back to my team. If ISAK signs for Liverpool, it rules out Gakpo and it rules out Ekitike. If ISAK doesn't sign, both of them become really good options, and Watkins to Ekitike and Rodgers to Gakpo are both transfers I will have a look at. Let's say, and they will probably be a priority if ISAK doesn't move. But if ISAK does move, where else can I look? Rodgers could go to someone like a Grealish. He could go to someone like a Semenyo, but I'm not sure it's a priority transfer. I could look at bringing in Mateta. That could be in place of Chris Wood. Now I know I've just bought him. Probably not worthwhile as it gives me a benching headache, and I'd say Rodgers and Watkins are probably bigger issues. And then it's defensively, right? It's upgrading Williams to Munoz. It's doing Agbadu to Senesi. It's doing Agbadu to Lacroix. I'm not going to go early on these transfers, partly because it's a long international break. I'm not fully convinced at what I want to do. I need to know that Ismail Assar is definitely going to be okay. And I want to have a little bit of time to maybe see the transfer window on Monday, what's looking like it's going to happen. Are Liverpool going to sign players? But also like Villa, what are they going to do in the window? Are Crystal Palace going to bring any players? What's happening up front for Chelsea? Is Palmer going to be back? What's going to happen in defence for Crystal Palace? There is a lot of moving parts. So I don't plan on making any transfers until at least the final week of the international break. And I'll probably take a few days off videos. We'll probably do a wildcard draft. once the transfer window closes and once we know what's happening with a few of the players that we are discussing. So there are a few things. I don't think it's impossible that I roll, but I would be surprised if I decide not to make a forward transfer and I decide to keep Rodgers and Watkins and not sell anyone else. I think I'll probably make a defensive transfer to try and boost my defense and bring in a Crystal Palace defender who just looks so good defensively. I wanted Richards at the start of the season and I really wish I'd started with him. The only saving grace with that is maybe I might want Lacroix or I might want Munoz instead. The only other thing I haven't really discussed in this video is playing a chip. The free hit doesn't really fix anything for me because these players that I want to get rid of, I'm going to want to get rid of regardless going forward. And I don't have particularly bad fixtures in my team this week. So free hit is off the table. There are some okay fixtures that you could look to target, but I don't think it really needs my team this week a free hit. Then there's the wild card, and I have considered it, and I will consider it more over the international break, but I don't really think I need it. I think I'm only a -4 potentially away from being with a really strong team again, because I look at it, and of course, if ISAK doesn't move and I suddenly want Gakpo and Ekitike, then things might change slightly. But I'm not sure I'm that far away. Like, I've had a couple of green arrows. I'm not at the rank I wanted to, particularly because game week 1 started well. But the things that I really feel like I would change if I had a few more transfers, I'd probably sell Rodgers and I probably would sell Watkins. And I might sell Chris Wood to Mateta, and I might sell one of my defenders to try and improve that. But that's only 4 transfers. Wood isn't even starting, so that's 3 transfers. And I can fix 2 of them with a -4. So as much as my team doesn't look amazing, it is 2 green arrows back to back. Thank you to João Pedro basically for those, and Bruno Fernandes, although he missed the penalty, so he doesn't get quite so much thanks from the week before. So yeah, I'm just going to sit on it, wait to see how it goes over the international break. I'm somewhere in between rolling my transfer, which I think is probably unlikely, making one move, maybe defensively, maybe selling Rodgers, or potentially taking a -4. I'm not ruling it out, but I don't think it'll be any of those anything else other than those situations. Don't think I'll go to a -8, and I'm almost certain I won't play a chip, a wildcard, or a free hit unless something happens between now and the deadline that I don't know at the moment, like a player moving or a player getting injured, which could force my hand. So that is where we're at. It's going to be a long international break, and it's been a very difficult start to the season for most of us. So take a little bit of time to switch off, step away from the game, and hopefully we come back in game week 4 with things going better and looking better than they have done. Any questions you have, I've got time over the next few days to answer quite a lot of them. So drop all your questions in the comment section down below. If there's anything I've missed, please let me know. All the comments, feedback on the background and everything. If you want to tell me that I'm lucky with the Bruno Fernandes penalty and I'm really stupid for picking Morgan Rodgers and Ollie Watkins, here is your time as well. I'm all ears because I think I agree with both of those things. Thank you all for watching. Have a lovely week. Enjoy the start of the international break. 2,000 likes is the aim. Subscribe if you're new around here, and I'll be back again very soon.